On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, it's Victory Sunday. We talk about what led to the Houston Texans getting a big dub against the LA Chargers, and the defense just wouldn't stop.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation.
What it do?
Today's for them, Sarge.
For sure.
Today is for them. I'm credential media member and Texas football analyst John Hickman, alongside the man with the big hat, the big smile, the H-Town versus everyone, and the B-Day boy, Brian, Playoff B, Big Sarge Bearfield. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Texans family, your team every day. On today's episode, we will be talking about CJ Stroud getting his swag back. What led to that? And you guys are absolutely going to love to hear what he had to say about adjustments. The stars shine bright deep in the heart of Texans. The stars shine for the Houston Texans, and that led to the 32-12 victory. A lot of guys, all Pro Bowlers, stepped up when the Texans needed them most. We open up today's show looking at the swarm mentality of the defense. Without the Texans defense, they would not be able to come off that field last night with a victory. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season, the playoffs rather, with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Big Sarge,
What's going on?
Before I hand it off to you, I just want to give some numbers on the performance the Houston Texans defense had Saturday night. The Texans defense had the second highest defensive EPA per snap versus the Chargers by any team in any playoff game since 2002, plus .49. Second out of 504 teams. 44.4% of Justin Herbert dropbacks when he was pressured turned into sacks versus the Houston Texans. Justin Herbert recorded 13 QBR, 18th worst QBR in a playoff game since 2006. Justin Herbert had the worst EPA per play in a playoff game of 30-plus quarterbacks since 2000, negative 0.73. That ranks Justin Herbert 450 out of 450 quarterbacks. The Texans pass rush pressured Justin Herbert on half of his dropbacks, led by Will Anderson with 7 pressures, 1.5 sacks. Danico Autry, 5 QB pressures, 1 sack. Daniil Hunter, 5 QB pressure. Herbert was under pressure in less than 2.5 seconds, 11 times, 5 unblocked, and the Texans cornerbacks were dominating as well. Derek Stingley Jr. and Kamari Lassiter combined for 7 tight window throws, 3 interceptions on 15 targets, and the rookie, Kamari Lassiter, did not allow a single reception of any of his 4 targets as the nearest defender. You talk about a historical performance. That's what the Houston Texans defense gave you.
What I will say is this, John. One thing coming into this season, when I got a chance to speak with head coach DeMeco Ryans one-on-one, when I got a chance to speak with defensive line coach Rod Wright one-on-one, one thing that they always said was, no matter what, this defensive line is going to come to play. And the way that defensive line plays is going to dictate what happens on the back end. And then you add in an all-pro cornerback in Derek Stingley Jr. You add in a young dog like, and I mean that in a good way, a young dog like Kamari Lassiter. You're looking at Kalen Bullock being able to take that next step and take that step up and become a starter throughout the season. And then you have Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o, who led the team in tackles. You have them step up. All that, John, combined makes what happened on Saturday come to fruition. And I'm going to tell you like this. Look, There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk about Justin Herbert. And I know myself, I said right here on this show, hey, man, y'all may be giving him and hyping him up just a little bit too much. Maybe just a little bit too much hype, because the last time we got a chance to see him play in the playoffs, he was giving up a 27-3 lead. Oh, Sarge, there's no possible way that you could say that because he doesn't play defense. Well, he plays offense. And if you're able to get, it was 27-0, excuse me. If you're able to get up 27 points and then your defense starts giving up points, how come you can't go back and get points? So that's just as much on him as it is anybody else. So on Saturday, John, it looked like the Houston Texans defense came out a little, it had like a bunch of nerves, it seemed like, because that first drive from the Chargers, they basically drove up the field, and for the Texans to hold them to just a field goal, it seemed like, okay, you don't want any repeat performances of, the Baltimore Ravens, and so which the last time the Houston Texans were in NRG, that's what happened. So you hold them to a field goal. Your offense comes out and turns the ball over, and you hold them to a field goal again. And then after that, John, that's 6 points. They held them to 6 points until the middle of the third quarter?
Yeah.
6 points. John, in 13 possessions by the Chargers on Saturday, two of them, right? 2 of them went for field goals. The first 2 drives went for field goals. John, let me tell you what the other 11 went for. 5 punts, 4 interceptions, 1 turnover on downs, and 1 touchdown. Hey, side note, Justin Herbert. I don't know if you get these alerts or not from ESPN or Yahoo or Google. Hey, but Derek Stingley Jr. made All-Pro.
First team.
First team All-Pro. The only other guy that's as good as Derek Stingley Jr. in the league is a guy you've already seen in Patrick Surtain, and you know not to bother him. Why would you want to bother Derek Stingley Jr.? He don't bother nobody. And John, the reason why I bring that up, and I know you got something to say, and I'm going to say this, and then I'll hand it over to you, and then you can hand it right back over to me. John, did he really, honestly, and truly believe on that fourth and 2 that he was going to go at Derek Stingley with Quentin Johnston?
I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Quentin Johnston, that's what the results you gonna get. Don't ever try me, boy.
Ain't that what Richard Sherman said about Michael Crabtree?
That was Richard Sherman and Michael Crabtree. Now we know Derek Stingley ain't gonna never get to a point of talking like that.
No,
he does all this talking on the field. But the swarm mentality, it gave you guys some of those numbers, and Sarge, you hit it right on the nail talking about player the linebackers. And I mean, listen. What DeMeco Ryans was able to do without Christian Harris, who exited the game early and did not return, what he was able to do with the 2 guys he's been able to be successful with all year, have a top 5 defense with all year, what he was able to do to create pressure with Azeez Al-Shire. I mean, he was coming up the middle. He was stunting on the outside while Will Anderson was stunting on the inside. He was able to get a sack that way. They were able to disguise things extremely well. And one of my biggest keys to victory was for the Houston Texans, get off the field when you can get off the field.
Yes.
And in between 3rd and 4th down, the Houston Texans defense held the Chargers to 3 of 12 on 3rd and 4th down conversion opportunities.
Yeah.
And so you look at that, that's a big number, right? That's amazing because for me, that means they're not getting gassed out on their field. They're getting off the field when it's time to get off the field. And getting pressure on Justin Herbert was a big reason for that. Forcing that offense to play from behind the sticks was a big reason to that.
All the while, excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you off, but all the while the offense isn't producing.
While they're still trying to figure it out.
Going back on the field doing their job.
And that was the theme for the entire year, which is why I was comfortable saying for the defense, y'all got to do y'all job because we didn't see y'all do it again. The only time y'all didn't do y'all job is against the Baltimore Ravens, and this ain't that, right?
Yeah.
And I got to give credit and highlight the man who returned. Foley Fatukasi set the tone, right? The Chargers marched down on their first drive. We can talk about that second drive. The second field goal, that was given to him because of the fumble by John Mechie, right?
Short field.
But on that first short field range. But on that first drive, the Chargers marched down there. 3rd and 1. They had already converted on 3rd down on that drive. And I said, man, okay, they got to get off the field here. And the Chargers tested that front four of the Houston Texans. Hear what DeMeco Ryans had to say about his defensive line unit.
Coach, your interior defensive line did a great job for you guys this evening, really disrupting the Chargers' offense, accounting for a couple of sacks, multiple tackles for loss. Can you talk about how their ability to create pressure impacted Justin Herbert's and the offensive rhythm and overall effectiveness throughout the game?
Playing playoff football, first thing first, you have to stop the run. And that's where our interior defensive linemen really played great today at stopping the run. Right? You stop the run, you force teams to have to throw the ball, and that's why our entire D-line, they cut it loose, and they really got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. As every guy from Will, Danico, everybody, Mario with a sack, all across the board, those guys were rushing together. They were disciplined with their rush lanes. Everybody did a great job of keeping Herbert in the pocket, and they were able to get him down several times.
I just want to add to that before we move on and talk about how the stars shine bright for the Houston Texans. I looked up some numbers, and the interior defensive line unit, of course, we got to highlight them helping the Houston Texans hold that offense to 50 rushing yards, which is amazing. But 4 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 11 QB hits, 2.8 yards per carry. And again, Foley Fadakowski setting the tone on that first series with the tackle for loss. They were not the only stars that showed up for the Houston Texans on both sides of the ball. So when we come back, we got more Locked On Texans talk on the way, playoff edition. Growing your small business in 2025 comes down to how well you can hire, right? I mean, you look at the Houston Texans. If they didn't hire well the last time they needed a head coach, then they wouldn't be in this position, right? But let's face it, better hires start with smarter insight. Shout out to Nick Casario, by the way. That's where LinkedIn comes in. With the strongest hiring data available, LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business. I've used LinkedIn Jobs myself, and I can tell you it's a game changer when it comes to hiring the right fit and looking for the right fit, honestly. Small businesses are wearing a lot of different hats, so every hire is crucial. LinkedIn gets that. That's why they connect you with the best candidates using data you won't find anywhere else, from unique skills and interests to the connections you share. LinkedIn helps you find the right person for the job. In fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find the right high-quality candidates. Hire smarter this year and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free. We all love free. Post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. That is LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Also, Texan fans and NFL fans alike, it's playoff time. And if you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action. That's where Prize Picks comes in. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the game, Prize Picks is the best place for you. It's the best place to turn all of your sports opinions, good or bad, into cash with daily fantasy player stat projections. You pick on Prize Picks, you pick the more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. And whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or you want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has got you covered. And with over 10 million members and billions of winnings, it's clear people love this platform. A special offer for our Locked On NFL and Locked On Texans family. Download the app today. That's step number 1. Use code Locked On NFL. That's step number 2. And that step will get you $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or download the app. Prize Picks, run your game.
Texas fans, welcome back to the Victory Monday edition of the Locked On Texans podcast. And just like John mentioned in the opening, the stars at night are big and bright. Deep in
Deep
the
in the
heart
heart
of
of
Texas.
Texas.
And on Saturday against the Los Angeles Chargers, almost called them San Diego again, the stars
So hard.
shine bright like a diamond.
Yes, they
Shine
do.
bright like a diamond. John, the Houston Texans were fortunate enough to have 4 Pro Bowl selections this year in offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil, in cornerback Derek Stingley Jr., and running back Joe Mixon, and with wide receiver Nico Collins, right? And so if you go back and you look at the game, you see that all 4 of those players made an impact. And I know that Laramie is the one that'll probably be put at the bottom of the totem pole because nobody really takes a look at the offensive linemen until they're doing bad. And so this is my big sorry salute to the way that Laramie Tunsil played on Saturday.
And rebounded from his early play in that game as well. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, for sure. And so, but when you look at the impact players, and Joe Mixon, 25 rushes for 106 yards, 1 touchdown. Nico Collins, 7 receptions, 122 yards, 1 touchdown. Derek Stingley with 2 interceptions. This is the reason why they were selected to the Pro Bowl. This is the reason why Derek Stingley Jr. made first team All-Pro. This is what the Houston Texans needed. They know that they come into the game. They don't have a lot of injuries. I mean, they don't have a lot of their players due to injuries. They don't have some of their star weapons due to injury, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And then Christian Harris, goes out. He doesn't play as much. I'm going to find out next week what did he tweak. But you look at a player like Mixon, you look at a player like Collins, especially when you have a quarterback who seemed to have gotten his swagger back towards the end of the second quarter. You look at that and you say, all right, we need to go out and do exactly what we need to do. And that was Joe Mixon running the way that he did, especially at the end of the game, but Nico Collins making himself available. And this is why these guys got the accolades and all of the praise that they did, no matter what we were looking at when we talked about the offensive play calling or some of the things that was happening on defense. These are the guys that say, hey, when the lights come on, when they shine the brightest, we're going to shine brighter. John, what did you see from those stars on Saturday?
Man, honestly, I got to go right to Joe Mixon. Nico Collins is going to get his praise, no doubt about it. I mean, you look at a not potential. He would have been an All-Pro if he never missed those 5 games.
For sure.
He played phenomenal for the Houston Texans offense in that passing attack that was extremely limited. And guys were not consistently for 4 quarters stepping up like we wanted them to do so. Nico Collins didn't have that problem. But the second half of Joe Mixon was exactly what the Houston Texans needed. It was one time I said, oh, yeah, Joe's mad on 2nd and 1, where this is probably the only critique I have of Bobby Slork. I'm like, hey, Bobby, it's 2nd and 1. Get a ball to Joe Mixon. He got you down there. Yeah. But even DeMeco Ryans had to acknowledge, like in the offseason, Houston brought over a lot of guys that had playoff experience. Joe Mixon helped close the game for the Houston Texans from an offensive standpoint. Listen to what DeMeco Ryans had to say.
Coach, in the offseason, you guys signed a lot of players with some good playoff experience. But can you kind of talk about Joe Mixon and what it's like having a closer like Joe Mixon in the fourth quarter on that last touchdown drive, nearly 60 yards on the ground, nearly 5 yards per carry. Can you talk about what it's like having a closer like Mixon and what does that mean to the offense?
Yeah, Joe's meant a lot to our team all year, right? The leadership that he brings, right? He has playoff experience. He's been there. So he has, good advice to give guys on what it takes to win in the playoffs and, also things of what he would do different from being there and being able to go all the way. So value that experience that he has, but more so just value the person that Joe is. Like great energy every day. He wants the football, and you want to play well in the playoffs, you have to be able to run the football. So Joe did a great job there today, and he doesn't do that without the way our guys block, tight ends, receivers, and also the offensive line, like collective effort there, which allowed us to run the ball the way we did. Thanks, Coach. All right, thank you, guys. All righty. Thank you.
Coach is ready to get out of there. I just want to close with Joe Mixon in the fourth quarter, 12 carries, 67 yards, 56 yards after the contact. So you look at the ability to bounce off of defenders to get to where he needs to get, and that one touchdown to really help put that game away. Joe Mixon was everything that the Houston Texans in that offense needed to close that game out and win it.
To add to that, John, throughout this season, we've seen the Houston Texans get in some very, very bad situations on the offensive side of the ball, and it got to a point where you're just like, they can't recover from this. No matter what, they can't recover from this. And even if you look at some of the earlier offensive drives that they had Saturday, you say, what's wrong with this offense? It seems like it's sputtering. They're doing that exact same thing that they always do. The defense comes in and plays well, and the offense doesn't do what it needs to do. John, we're going to go back and we're going to look at the play that CJ Stroud made on after he fumbled the snap, got the ball, ran to the sideline, threw it to Xavier Hutchinson in the middle of the field, and everybody's going to go crazy over that play because now you're saying, wow, look at CJ. And I think on that same drive, he comes back and he made a 37-yard pass to Nico Collins in the middle of the field, and you're going to go like, wow. But the biggest play on that drive, the biggest play was from the 1-yard line, and Joe Mixon was able to get them away from the goal line with a 7-yard run, if I'm not mistaken, to give CJ some type of operating room to be able to move around.
Good
and
point.
Get them, to get them out of that situation. And in the past, we don't know if that would have happened for the Houston Texans. And you look at that run, and nobody's going to really pay attention to that. But that's what really got it started. Joe Mixon refused to go down because he could have been tackled. But the
pressure was in the backfield.
Yeah, if anybody knows anything about Joe Mixon, his pure will, drive, determination, heart, mindset, he's not going to take a safety. He's not going to be sacked. He's not going to be tackled in the end zone. And him giving that Houston Texans offense just a little bit of room to breathe, and then they put together that 99-yard touchdown, John. I didn't say field goal. Touchdown. Something that they really needed. You go back and you look at Joe Mixon and what he's done. And before we move off this topic, I want to say this. Yes, I highlighted the Pro Bowl selections from the Houston Texans on how they shine.
Who you about to highlight? The young boy?
Hey, Kamari Lassiter?
The young boy?
Hold on. Kamari Lassiter played like a grown man.
Yeah.
Not only did Kamari Lassiter play like a grown man, Danielle Hunter. I know he didn't get any sacks, but what he was doing, I realized one time
was phenomenal.
I realized one time I'm going back and I'm rewatching the film, John, and I'm like, is that Danielle in coverage? They're dropping Danielle in coverage as well. Will Anderson Jr. told me before the game, told me in the week leading up to the game, hey, Sarge, this is the first time I've been healthy in a very long time, like healthy, than since the beginning of the season. And last year I wasn't healthy going into the playoffs. This year they're going to have to deal with me, and they had to deal with him. And so you look at those two combined with Fadakasi, Settle, Edwards, Autry, Barnett.
They had all of them back.
D'Angelo Ross, who made one hell of a play after Derek Barnett blocked the extra point, after the Houston Texans had given up that touchdown pass to Ladd McConkey for 86 yards. Wait, before you have the breaking news.
Wait a minute. Who?
Eric Murray. Eric Murray played his butt off, John. And so a lot of people don't realize that interception isn't easy to make, because if the football gets on you that quick, if you're watching and you're paying attention to everything that's going on and the ball gets on you that quick, you're like, oh, he had the mindset and the awareness to catch the ball and score. And he's one of the ones that we've had that up and down with all season. And John, I'm not going to take too much away from what you want to say about Eric Murray, because you have been preaching how good he can be all season.
Yeah, I'm not going to stay on the long. He's a good football player in his role. And what I liked about the Houston Texans last night against the Chargers, because they were healthiest, no Jalen Peter, no Jimmy Ward, of course, so guys had to play a little bit more. But because that front seven was so good in creating their pressure, that really did allow for D'Amico Ryans to kind of do some things differently with their coverage. But because those outside guys were so impactful and locked down, the safeties really had the easiest job of the night, and that's just make plays when the ball gets to you. That's what they were able to do. When we come back, we got to talk about CJ Stroud getting the swag back and how that led to the Houston offense.
Swag when I serve.
I almost hit it too. That led to the Houston Texans offense just getting some rhythm and feeling themselves at home in front of a crowd that did an amazing job pumping that energy into their franchise, into their team, into those players. From big upsets like the Houston Texans to game-winning drives like the Chargers were not able to have. The NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bucks guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. And if you took the points last night for the Houston Texans, I know you came up big. If you took any of those anytime touchdowns, I know you came up big. Nico scored, Joe scored, CJ scored as well. So I know you came up big. I know you came up with some money in your pocket, and you can continue to do so on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make every playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel. Make every moment more. An official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Again, visit FanDuel.com to join today.
CJ, early in the game, well, throughout the game, the Chargers defense was able to create pressure on you guys. But one adjustment you made was just taking what they were giving you and started using your legs. How did your mobility help continue to sustain drives for the offense? And it eventually looked like not only you, but the entire offense started to get their swag back a little bit throughout the game.
Yeah, that's something that, I've kind of seen on tape was they don't really, other than Bo Nix for real this year, they didn't really spy, and Mahomes as well, they did it, but they didn't really spy other quarterbacks. So I kind of seen it on film and thought like one of them, I think, actually the interception I threw to, I think that was in the second quarter, but I kind of looked on the thing and seen that like I had a running hole. So the next play, I didn't like really like just have it in my mind I was gonna do it, but once I seen him kind of back up and I just took off and trusted my slow speed. But yeah, I thought and I kind of I felt my joy coming back, and after I got up, just that's one of the best feelings in the world is after you make a play, you just turned up, and then your teammates turned up with you. That's one of the best feelings in the world, and I think that kind of gave our team juice. So yeah, I think just me losing my legs is definitely gonna be helpful this postseason.
Welcome back, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. Sarge, guys, I loved CJ saying, listen, throughout the week, I noticed some things. They didn't spot no quarterbacks for real this year. Out of 17 games, they spotted one throughout the game, and Patrick Mahomes at times. And understanding, I got to be better. Up until the 98-yard drive, and you look at the fumble and everything, what happened. He don't make that play if he don't bounce out and use his leg to extend that play.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the pinpoint accurate to find Xavier Hutchinson down the field to keep that drive alive. There's many times in that game where we saw CJ Stroud use his legs to keep the drive alive. The Houston Texans had 8 first downs that they picked up on the ground. CJ Stroud accounted for 3, I believe. So that's important coming from a quarterback, understanding that I have to be better. Throughout the week, I said CJ Stroud needs to be elite. Now, you can look at his numbers and say, okay, maybe if I look at his numbers, maybe 22 of 33, 282, 1 TD, 1 interception isn't the greatest, right? But look at this and take this into accountability, which is why the offensive line was also a key to victory. When CJ Stroud did not have any pressure, 61.5% of his dropbacks, no pressure, 18 of 23, 198 yards, 1 TD, 117 pass rating, 8.6 yards per attempt. CJ Stroud had the 8th best passer rating throwing between the hashes by any quarterback in a playoff game since 2006, 8 out of 119 quarterbacks. So using his legs And making that adjustment in game was amazing. But that moment really sparked CJ himself getting his swag back, starting to feel himself, and also that led to the entire offense playing with some juice. That's what you want to see out of your franchise quarterback, and we got to give him love, give him kudos for doing that.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to make sure that I give a big SAR salute to is the way that Bobby Slowick, offense coordinator, was able to recognize that CJ had his confidence back.
Yeah.
He was able to recognize CJ had his confidence back. He was able to recognize that CJ was feeling it, and he did not diminish that moment by calling a screen pass, wide receiver screen or a sweep. He said, CJ, this is your moment. I'm on a ride. I'm on a ride with the hot hand. I'm going to do whatever it's going to do to make you successful. A lot of times, how I knew that CJ was back was because he was getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And they started that. They started out that way.
The first play of the game.
And John Mechie fumbled, right? But like you could just see that Bobby made a concerted effort to help CJ get the ball out of his hands quicker, make better decisions. And one of the reasons he was able to make better decisions. Now, I'm not going to say that the offensive line played great. And they were going up against one of the best defensive fronts in the National Football League. But that offense gave him a lot of time to be able to make the decisions that he needed to make. And as he went along, as the game went along, and you could see that he was able to make the decisions that he wanted to make, that's when you seen the confidence start to build back. And you said, okay, this is the CJ that we've been missing for a very long time this past season. And the first play, I think when CJ, the interception that he threw when he was trying to throw to John Mechie on the sideline, and they picked it off like right on the sideline. If CJ would have took the ball down and just ran, and I think that I tweeted that, I said, why didn't he just run the ball? If he'd have took off, they was in 3rd and long, so he probably wouldn't have been able to get the first down, but he would have been able to get them into a position to where they could punt the ball and make and get their defense back on the field instead of turning the ball over. Now the defense went out there and did what they had to do, but you could just see that I think something clicked when he got to the sidelines and said, you know what? Just like what you said, John, about picking up on keys on them not spying, you saying, all right, now I know that I could do this. And he also started to realize one thing that we've seen over the past couple of weeks when it comes to CJ Stroud, and even in the game against the Ravens, a lot of people don't want to say this. You can see CJ was starting to feel like, oh, I don't have to rush the throws. I don't have to chop my feet. I don't have to get this ball out. I'm not hearing footsteps anymore. I'm not seeing ghosts as much. And that's a testament to right tackle Titus Howard moving to left guard. He's still going to make his mistakes, of course. And Titus even admitted Saturday after the game, he even admitted that I didn't play my best football, but I knew that I did my best to protect CJ. And when it was time to run that ball to close out, I said, we're not going back. That was Titus Howard's first playoff game. He says, I'm not losing my first playoff game. I'm going to do whatever it takes. So that's how you can see that CJ was getting his swag back, and Bobby and the offensive line helped with that.
I also want to add to this point, the Texans, before we close, the Texans had 32 points. There were 3 occasions that I remember drives being killed because of mental errors. The first series, John Mechie fumbles, right? And that, if you look at how quickly that ball came out, empty base formation, it looked like CJ was ready to play point guard. John Mechie fumbles. The Joe Mixon fumble, they're in plus territory on that fumble. And then the interception wasn't an interception, but Joe Mixon had an unnecessary roughness call that backed him up. So it was 2nd and 30 and 2nd and 40, and they had to overcome that adversity to even score 3. You look at it and say, man, if they would have got their ball back where they were already, that's potentially 7 against, again, the league's best defensive red zone defense. I do want to add credit to Bobby Slowick knowing what worked against the Chargers and kept going to it. Houston dominated the LA Chargers in their 12 personnel package over 25 plays. They produced 174 yards, 6.9 yards per play, 1 TD, and it had a 60% success rate. That's how you want to win the game. Shout out to my boy John Crumpler. We got more Locked On Texans throughout the week because we have to highlight the overlooked, underlooked heroes of the game as well. Please follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12 and make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texan page on YouTube.
And make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter and Big Star Sports with the Z at the end. Hey, Rex Ryan, this is for you.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.